Speak, testing. Oh yeah, now it's working. Folks, boy, that's a lot longer. So one more quick announcement. There's also a 50-50. And Lois is right here. All you have to do is raise your hand and she'll come right over and take your money. Okay, folks, we're going to get started. The candidates are going to go on right at 6 o'clock. So it's 5 minutes to 6. So we're going to get started with... Okay, people. So if you can find your seats, and the candidates can make their way up to your stools on the stage. Okay, just like 1 or 2 more minutes before we get started. It turns out the candidates did not have their microphones yet, so they're off in the back getting that. If you guys could sit down and settle down, that would be so great. So I did want to thank WMUR and Seacoast Online. If C-SPAN is here, I want to thank you as well. Any other media folks, thank you very much. We appreciate it. I also want to thank the Seacoast Republican Coalition that put this whole thing together. I can't even tell you. We had a lot of meetings, like so many little details and things that have to be discussed, and you know, it's not easy to get consensus with a group of Republicans, so it was like herding cats to come up with it. But I think we have a great venue. It was also not easy to get all 6 candidates available in one night because, you know, once you start a campaign, things get booked very far in advance. So it was quite a bit of haggling to get everyone here. So I want to thank the candidates for making that happen. That was really awesome. We have had a couple of reports that there's some, shall we say, Democrat operatives in the audience. A couple of them have been pointed out and asked to leave. If you are here, if you're planning to be disruptive, you can just get out right now because that is not going to be tolerated. But if you can sit quietly, I guess we can go with it. The format for the CD1 thing is that they each get a 2-minute opener, and then it's just going to be a barrage of questions, one after another, roughly grouped into categories. And if any one of the candidates mentions one of the other candidates in their answer, at the discretion of the moderator, yours truly, I might give them a chance to respond. Of course, if you say something nice, you can just say thank you. So I'd like to now invite Colonel Roy Morick up here, U.S. Marine Corps, to do the Pledge of Allegiance.
Standing, if you're able, I'm going to stand over here. And, for those of you, looks like everybody got their covers off. All right. Raise the flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Next, I'd like to invite up Marilyn Page for an invocation. And the candidates, you can kind of work your way up here. Okay.
Boy, this is awesome. This is awesome. What a wonderful group. And like you said, we have been working on this and are just thrilled that you all have been able to come. It's a beautiful night. What a great way to have wonderful people gather together to hear all of our excellent candidates and what they have to say. So, thank you. I'm sure you feel the same way. It's like I'm in awe of what our founding fathers have done and gave to us. And I just appreciate so much of what all the other people have done along the way to support this country, to keep our freedom. And probably some of you have seen the little clips from the our foreign visitors who've come to the and I think they're more excited about this country than we are, except for this group. So, my husband Glenn and I, we just had a riot watching these people. And one thing that so many of them say at the end is, God bless America. So they have inspired me that our invocation will be from the song, God Bless America. So if you will just bow your heads, because God Bless America, Irving Berlin wrote that, and it's a prayer. It's a prayer. So think of it as a prayer for our country, for our nation, and for each other. God bless America. While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us swear allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. God bless America, my home sweet home. And may God continue to bless us, and may we all work together to honor his blessing on the land that we love. Amen. Amen.
So apparently there's an issue with the sound that they're working on right now, so hang tight here. The one thing I will say, everybody here has a favorite, and when your candidate does something cool, you want to cheer and make a thing. I know I can't stop that, but we can get through more questions if we minimize that. And I think all the candidates want to get through as many questions as we possibly can, especially if we're off to a slightly slow start with the microphone. So just kind of. Yeah, but I'm on it. Anybody know any jokes? All right, so I guess while we're waiting, we have to figure out who was going to go first.
Okay, I'm sorry.
So I have this really awesome four-way dice that has four faces on it. So whoever's face comes up first is going to get the first question, then we just got to alternate it. Anybody want to verify whose face is theirs? There we go. I didn't touch it. It is Holly. Holly, you got the first question. All right. Boy, girl, boy, girl.
Sure. Take this. Boy, girl, boy. Here, I guess.
Awesome. All right, if we could just get a round of applause for the candidates. All right, so I guess I can't stand in front of that without killing everyone. Holly, you won the first question. So, what personal experience? What's that? Oh my goodness! Yeah. Getting ahead of myself. All right, so you get the first opening statement, and we'll go 1, 2, 3, and then you'll get the first question, and we'll go back. All right.
Can you all hear me back there? Yeah. All right. So my name is Holly Nobletsky, and I own Noble Ironworks, a structural steel fabrication company. And I have been fighting for the last 25 years for the American worker and the Granite State worker because they have been adversely affected by our unfair trade agreements. And we've hollowed out our manufacturing, we've hollowed out job opportunities, and we've hollowed out our wage growth. And I've been fighting for Buy American, and I'm happy to say we got it passed here in New Hampshire because every Granite Stater deserves a good, decent job. I'm also a nurse practitioner, a geriatric and a psychiatric nurse practitioner, and I have been working boots on the ground, caring for some of our most vulnerable populations, seniors, people with dementia, people with mental illness, and I have volunteered nationally and internationally at natural and man-made disasters. And during COVID, I worked 40 hours at my company because we were considered essential, and on the weekends, I went into the nursing home. And I work with some of our most vulnerable people who are in the nursing home during COVID. We will never treat our elderly like that again. And last, I'm a veteran, and I will always stand for the flag, I will always stand for our country, and I will always stand for our servicemen and women and veterans to make sure that we honor the moral contract that we have with them to care for them and honor them. And that's my okay, caution. And on a lighter note, I ride a Harley, and I have gone cross country, ocean to ocean to ocean, solo. No guns, no mace, no GPS. And I can tell you this is the most beautiful country in the world. But as Dorothy said, there is no place like home, and I am honored to call New Hampshire my home.
Okay, Anthony, before you go, let me just explain how the timing system works here. So it only works in whole minute increments. So for the opening session, for the opening statement, you get 2 minutes. When the questions go, everybody gets 1 minute. And he'll push the button when you start talking. It'll be green while you can just go. And the yellow is the last 15 seconds, 20 seconds, and then when you're red, you gotta wrap it up. Okay, go for it.
Thank you. I'd like to thank the coalition for hosting the event and everyone for showing up. This is awesome. It's surreal to see this many people participating. My name is Anthony DiLorenzo. I was raised in a working class family that encouraged me to work hard and pursue the American dream. I started working when I was 8 years old, delivering a newspaper, and I've been working ever since. I've washed dishes for $2.30 an hour, minimum wage. I've waited tables, bus tables, like Pappas. I sold cars. I was a line cook. I moved to New Hampshire in '83 to go to UNH. I worked while I was there, and determined that college was not for me, so I dropped out. I'm a college dropout, and worked full time, saved up $7 grand, and I started my own business. It was very difficult. I'm sure anybody here who has their own business understands the sacrifice, but it was very gratifying. With the help of a lot of great employees, a lot of hard work and determination, we've been able to turn that business into 40 different businesses in 10 states. We created over 1,000 jobs, and I was able to do what my grandparents and parents encouraged me to do, which is live the American dream. And I'm running for Congress because I'm concerned that that dream is becoming less and less attainable. As I travel the state, I hear a lot of Granite Staters are struggling. One gentleman came up to me and he said, a young kid, he said, my generation is the first generation in American history who is worse off than their parents. And to me, that is unacceptable. Our current federal delegation is not representing us, and that bothers me. In addition, I'm very concerned about the far left. We are surrounded by the far left. They would love to turn New Hampshire into Maine and Massachusetts, and Boo is right. And if we do not fight for our great state, they will take it from us. So I appreciate you all coming out today, but we have a fight ahead of us. I don't know if you saw the recent elections in New York, but you had six, which was the Democrat, Socialist, Communist Club, whatever they are. They're bragging that they took 6 seats. You had 3 Mamdani. Tell me, am I up?
Okay.
Anyway, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Melissa, you are up.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being here. This is an incredible group. My name is Melissa Bailey. I live in Bedford with my husband and our 3 children. We have an 18-year-old. She just graduated from high school. We have a 16-year-old, actually today, a 16-year-old, oh, there we go, who is learning how to drive, and then I don't know why this is working, and a 12-year-old. So, everyone here, you and I, we want one thing. We need to win this congressional seat because we can't send Stephanie Shaheen. We can't let her on coattails. So we have to win this seat. We saw out of New York yesterday and elections all across the country how crazy this next generation, this next class of, we can't even call them Democrats because they are Marxists, they are socialists. They are anti-American and pro-Hamas. So we cannot send Stephanie Shaheen to Congress where she will be voting with them virtually party line. So I'm in this race because I couldn't sit on the sidelines. As a mom, I want the best possible future for my children and children all across our Granite State. I want them to live in a country that is free and safe and full of opportunities. And I have been on the front lines of raising a family, and I have seen firsthand the radical left that has taken over our schools, our culture, our politics. Instead of teaching our children what makes our country great, they're learning to see the world through a lens of division and resentment. And this cancer of the left, we are seeing it everywhere. Our traditions, our values, common sense, it's all being chipped away. It reminds me of our old man in the mountain, how it appeared that he collapsed overnight, but really it was a gradual weakening over a long period of time, and that's exactly what we see in our country today, our freedoms being stripped away little by little, year after year. Go ahead.
All right, thank you. So I'm not exactly sure what's going on. Okay. We need them. But I was told if I step over this line, that makes it squeak. So maybe if we were just at the front of the stage, maybe that's what was making it squeak. So we'll try to minimize that if we can. All right, Brian. If your microphone works, you can. Does it? Oh, does it?
Want to turn me up? Hello, hello. 1, 2, 1, 2. Hello. Andy, can you give me some?
These were checked so many times you wouldn't believe it.
Check 1, 2. That's you. You know, I used to DJ when I was in college. You want to hear something? There we go. Now we're good? Everyone good? All right.
Shut all your microphones off. Just the battery for this microphone. You don't need a microphone. Try now.
Now it's not. There we go. All right. All right. name is Brian Cole. I'm a state representative out of Manchester. I'm a former Manchester Republican Committee in 23 and 24. In 23, we flipped Manchester red for the first time in 36 years. We got Mayor Jay elected, and we got him an automatic board. So that was pretty exciting stuff. Right. The following year, we had eight state reps out of Manchester. We increased that to 14. We gained 6 seats in Manchester, and we also gained a Senate seat. So we've had a lot of success in a blue city, and we're going to continue to turn Manchester red. I think I know how to run races, and I think we have a great opportunity to take this congressional seat in CD1. A lot of people ask me the question along when I'm on the campaign trail, what's the difference between you and the rest of the candidates? I'm the only candidate that's running for Congress on the Republican side that's an elected official. So I've been up at the State House 2 terms. My first term I was on Commerce and Consumer Affairs. My second term I was on Ways and Means. I'm also the Vice Chair of Housing for the state of New Hampshire. So I'm the only person in the race that has legislative experience. So day one, when I go down to Washington, I'm going to be able to hit the ground running. I'm going to be able to serve you, the people of New Hampshire. Top 3 things. Number 1, nuclear energy. I'm going to run through these really quick. I went down to Washington last fall. I talked to the Department of Energy. We're going to take the old fuel from Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant. We want to put small modular reactors next to it. We think we can reduce your energy prices for you folks here in the state of New Hampshire by up to 24% if we do this. This conversation is coming along just great. Oh, this is going to go quick, yeah. Second thing, biotech industry, very important for the state of New Hampshire. I just have a bill on Kelly Ayotte's desk right now. Hopefully she signs it, and that's going to expand the right to try. It's a huge industry. It's a $120 billion industry. We want that here in New Hampshire. New Hampshire to be the birding trust. Third thing, securing our northern border. Everyone forgets we have 58 miles of border with Canada. It's an open field. You can just walk into Canada. There's no fence and no nothing. So when I get down to Washington, I want to get funds to secure our northern border. Some of the things I've already done in Concord, give me 2 more. I already voted to keep men out of girls' sports and men out of girls' sports. I voted for parental rights, and I voted to expand BFAs for students here in New Hampshire. Thank you.
All right. So the good news for you, Brian, is because you got the last open question, you do get the first question. So just to let the audience know, the reason we have to have the microphones is so that because this is also being broadcast. So even though we could conceivably yell and you would hear us, that would ruin the experience for the people who are not in the room here. Okay, so Brian, what personal experience best prepared you to serve in Congress? You have a minute for these. The first one was 2 minutes. These are shorter. So, and you don't have to use the whole minute if you can answer it in 30 seconds. All right, go.
My first term up in Concord, we only had a 2-person majority at the State House. So I knew how to work with the other side of the aisle. Because if you didn't work with the other side of the aisle, you weren't going to get anything done. I know how to compromise, but I also know how to stand my ground. And I'll do what's right here in New Hampshire. So I think that's my biggest advantage when I go down to Washington. There's going to have to be some compromising, some things going on like that. And I already know how to do it. And I think that's what gives me my best advantage.
Awesome, thank you. So the first round, I should have said, the theme is leadership and character. So Melissa, you're next. Tell us, please, if you would, about a time that you changed your mind on an important issue. No, they're not all the same question.
Oh, okay,
right.
okay. When I changed my mind on an important issue, I homeschooled my kids for about 5 years, and before homeschooling, I was raised in the public schools. I graduated from Lebanon High School, so my husband also graduated from a public school, so we just assumed we would send our kids through the public school system. And then becoming a parent and seeing what is going on in our public education system, we decided when they were young that we should pull them out, and it really happened around COVID. I was feeling called to homeschool regardless, and then COVID happened, and we just really felt like it was the time to pull them out, and ended up homeschooling for about 5 years. And I really feel like for that early education, what is being presented to our children, the trans agenda, the radical left agenda that is being presented in our schools is very dangerous for their young minds. And so I'm I'm very glad that we changed our mind on that issue and brought our kids home.
Okay, I know a minute is tough, but we're going to try to get through as many questions as we can. All right, Anthony, is there any issue where you disagree with the Republican Party in general?
My my biggest concern about the big beautiful bill, which I fully support, was the increase in the debt ceiling. I believe that our national debt is probably one of the biggest concerns to our country, the biggest threats to our country. So although I support the tax relief, I support eliminating taxes on Social Security, I support the rural health care plan, raising the debt and deficit spending is an inappropriate way to run our government. And when I get to Congress, I will take business practices, something I've been working in the private sector for 35 years, to bring responsible fiscal policy to D.C.
Okay, Holly, if you are elected, what do you hope people will say about your service 4 years from now?
When I'm elected, 4 years from now, people will say that I was honest and direct, that you always know where I stand, because it's very important to know where I stand, because after negotiation, you need to know what my red line is. So honesty and directness are my top qualities.
Awesome. Timekeeper, how are we doing over there? You look like you're struggling a little bit. Okay, luckily we have a backup traditional. Okay, so what I'm going to try to do is not have everyone go in the same order, so you can help keep me honest. We'll just rotate it. So that means you go first this time, Melissa. All right, so this round is about fiscal responsibility and government spending. So your question is, what federal program provides the least value to taxpayers and should be reformed or eliminated? I think I know what you're going to say.
All of them, almost all of them. There is so much that we need to cut out. We need to continue down this path that DOJ started, and now we have the fraud task force that is rooting out the waste and fraud in Washington, and every program is full of bloat, and I think we've started to root some of it out, but there is a lot more work to do. And in my professional career, before I stepped away to raise my children, I was a financial auditor. I was an accountant and in finance roles in the private sector. And so I will bring that to Washington. I will bring that fiscal responsibility, which is seriously lacking there, and continue with this fraud task force to not only find the fraud and to put controls in place where it's not happening, where you're keeping more of your money, but also to hold people accountable, because I think too often we feel like that's not happening. We're finding the fraud and no one is paying the price. No one is, we're not seeing justice for it. So that's an issue that I'm incredibly passionate about and a skill set that I will bring to Washington with me.
Awesome. Okay, so the new system, since we don't have the lights, is that once the time is up, one of those two lovely volunteers will stand up for us. Okay, Anthony, how would you balance the need to reduce the national debt with also funding important government services?
So our federal budget right now is around $7 trillion. $3 trillion of that goes toward interest payments and Social Security. Many people don't know that Social Security was not reserved for the obligation the government has to the citizens. They spent all that money. So now they take it out of our budget. Our budget should be $4 trillion. And if it were, our deficit spending would be zero. So it's poor fiscal management. And we're going to continue to get poor fiscal management if we continue to elect busboys to Congress and people that are unqualified to do the work. I've been in the private sector for 35 years. I can't operate on a deficit. That's called bankruptcy in the private sector. So I will bring those tools to Washington, D.C. to help solve this crisis, financial crisis. Thank you.
Okay, so Holly, what is the one area where the federal government should spend more money, if there's any, and if so, how would you pay for it?
I wouldn't say more money, I would say more judicial spending of money for military and for border control. I think that's national security, and we need to make sure that we spend it wisely and not through fraud and abuse, but we need to really rein in that budget. But I think that's an important area where you need to continue to spend. So it's military and border security.
Awesome. Okay, Brian, what specific budget reform would you support to improve accountability in Washington?
I think I would probably start with the Department of Education, the Federal Department of Education. I think I'd like to scrap it and make block grants and give that money right back to the states and let the states run their own educational system.
Okay, so the next round is economy, jobs, and workforce. Anthony, correct, you go first. I swear that a setup, but the question that comes up is, what is the most effective way Congress can help small businesses grow?
I would say stay out of the way. I've been in business for 35 years, and people used to ask me, who's your biggest competitor? And honestly, I would answer the U.S. government. I mean, it's the truth. I spend more time with audits and dealing with banking commissions and the DOJ, and so I would say stay out of our lives as much as possible. You need guardrails, but I don't need to visit with the government every day. And it all the time I have to spend dealing with government bureaucracy takes me away from my job, which is creating businesses, creating jobs, and achieving the American dream.
Okay, Holly, what should Congress do to help workers adopt to automation and artificial intelligence?
So I think there needs to be a focus on the CTEs and the community colleges and training for that and training for all other workforces, because we don't want it to replace our workers. We want it to augment our workers, to make our workers strong. We don't ever want to replace the American workers because they are our greatest asset. So if we can teach them young, and we can continue to teach them in the community colleges and the four-year schools how to use it as a tool as opposed to a replacement. I think that's the best way to do it.
Okay, Brian, how would you address concerns about wage growth and economic mobility?
Wage growth and economic mobility. Yeah, well, I can tell you that the minimum wage certainly needs to be raised. People can't make a living on $8.75 an hour like we have it here in New Hampshire. That's just not real. Just head out there? Okay. Bringing up wages. Part of my bill that's on Kelly's desk is bring the tech industry to the state of New Hampshire. These are all high-paying jobs. You call it Epibone in Manchester. They can grow your own human bone. If you had a bone cancer or a bone deformity, they can use their own stem cells to grow your replacement bone. That's how far the technology can come. So once you sign this bill, these billion-dollar companies are going to start flocking up to New Hampshire, and that's going to really help out our economy here with great jobs.
I think I'll do great. Thank you. You guys are awesome. Okay, Melissa, what role should the federal government play in supporting American manufacturing?
Well, the federal government needs to protect American jobs, and so that means we need to take a serious look at our visa programs. We need to ensure that all of the fraud, again, that's happening in every federal program is happening in our visa programs as well. And our college graduates, they should have the first shot at the American dream, so these jobs shouldn't be going to foreigners. We also need to continue with deporting people who are here illegally and are taking jobs from Americans. Jobs should go to Americans first, period.
Okay, so that brings us to round 4, healthcare and families. I think you're next. Who's that? Is it Holly? Who started last time? Anyone? I thought he started last time. I'm pretty sure.
I'll take it.
Is it? All right. Audience, help me out here, huh? I'm trying. All right, that's Holly. Okay. All right. Holly, what is the biggest challenge facing the healthcare system today?
There are many
Softballs.
challenges. Being a nurse practitioner and having to give up my practice because I couldn't get reimbursed, we have a real problem. We have multiple problems. We have problems with staffing. We have problems with access. We have problems with reimbursement. We have problems with getting insurance coverage. We need to be able to negotiate across state lines so that we can increase competition and drive down the cost. We need transparency in billing so that people know what they're paying for. And if we give health savings accounts and the subsidies to the individual so that they can have, that's the subsidies to the individual as opposed to the insurance company, give them the power of the consumer. Transparency in billing, money in their hands, and increase competition, we can drive down the cost. But we need to have access. We have low staffing. Our long-term care facilities are burdened by the use of traveling nurses and traveling providers that are breaking the backs. We need to have more providers.
We can go back that way, sure. We're just making it up as we go. I'm just trying to keep it fair, so that everybody doesn't start the same question. So, all right, Anthony, you came up with this one. So the question is, how would you improve healthcare affordability for working families?
We need to bring back competition and we need to reduce regulation. I thought I knew a lot about politics before I got into it, and as I now am a candidate and delve into it, I'm horrified at the regulations that have been passed that really are influenced by special interest groups. I mean, we all know Big Pharma has a huge influence, but most of our candidates are bought and paid for by special interest groups, and it's costing us in all sorts of areas, including healthcare. It limits competition, and it limits the number of not only hospitals, but also healthcare providers. So the greatest thing about capitalism is it promotes competition, and the best company wins by providing the best product at the best price. And I would go back to that model.
Okay, Melissa, so what federal policies, if any, would you support to strengthen mental health services, or do you think the federal government should not be in that business at all?
I think the federal government should not be in the business. I think that we need them removed as much as we can from every aspect of our life here in the Granite State. And when Democrats are in charge, we get more and more government. And one thing that Stephanie Shaheen and I actually do agree on is that our healthcare system is broken, and she's running to fix it, which is ironic because it came from the Democrats. So I would say that we just need less and less when it comes to dealing with mental health, that we need the resources to do it here in our state. It is an important issue, and that we should be in our communities finding ways to help with mental health.
Okay. And the final question in the topic of healthcare goes to Brian. Brian, what should Congress do to improve health outcomes in rural communities?
Well, I think we actually already did it with the Big Beautiful Bill last year. New Hampshire received $204 million. This is going to go to the local hospitals and infrastructure here for the state of New Hampshire, so that's going to help you out. And beyond that, over the next 5 years, there's an additional $500 million coming to the state of New Hampshire, and that's going to go to improving your quality of life here.
Okay. All right, so now we're going to move on to government and constitutional issues. And it's Anthony now, says the audience. Okay, so this is a question that came from the Republican Committee of Hampton Falls, and the question is, do you support the Senate filibuster and the current 60-vote threshold for legislation? That might have been for the Senate candidates, but it's on my sheet, so give it your best shot.
I'm not that well informed about the filibuster, but I can tell you, we would never do that in private sector. I don't understand why you get a guy up there to talk till everybody gets tired and goes home. It really doesn't sound like a good use of time. So I have a hard time with that, but it's indicative of what we have for a government. It really is.
Do you want to take the same question? Is that? What does it mean to effectively represent people who did not vote for you?
Well, we have to bring them over to our side. It's listening. That's what it is. As a parent, you are constantly breaking up fights and listening to different perspectives. And so I do think having a listening ear is important, and people want to be heard more than anything. If you can hear people's concerns and give them your perspective, they can still feel that they're being represented by us. And I do think it's important to have discussions and to point out the differences, because a lot of times we have solutions and there's just so much anger and fear mongering on the other side. They are being sold a bag of lies from the radical left. Democrats, you know, the generation of Democrats that was my parents' generation, they're just kind of going along with this new generation of Democrats, and they're all socialists, they're all crazy. And so I think having the conversations is important to say, this is why this doesn't work. And we need to teach our next generation that as well, because so many of them are being swept up in this socialist movement that they think the only solution is, oh, out of time, I'm sorry. I wasn't looking for time. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, Brian, what congressional reform would most improve public trust in government?
Transparency. That's my answer.
Okay. Okay, Holly's got the last question. I got to go to my backup questions because another Senate question got in there. What is one thing that Congress... he's good. What is one thing that Congress should stop doing immediately?
They should stop paying for health insurance and a stipend at the end of 5 years. When you get out of Congress, you should not be getting retirement, you should not be getting health insurance. Our veterans don't get that, they don't deserve that.
I don't get it. Okay, the next category is national security and public safety. Melissa, what is the most important step Congress can take to strengthen national security?
Well, we need to codify all the work that President Trump has done through executive orders, because we know if we lose control in Washington again, it all goes away. We need a secure border. We know that this next generation of Democrats, they want to abolish the border. I don't even know what that means. I don't know how you have a country. So we need strong border security, our northern border as well. And that's how we protect our nation. We need to know who's coming into our country. We need to ensure that drugs aren't coming into our country. We have radicals on our own soil, and we really need to be concerned about that, about rooting that out of our country.
Brian, how should Congress support law enforcement while simultaneously protecting civil liberties?
Well, I absolutely believe in protecting civil liberties, and I absolutely believe in enforcing our country's laws. I'm happy to have ICE here, because I'd rather have ICE here than having murderers, rapists, pedophiles, and drug dealers in my country.
Okay. Anthony, what role should Congress play in responding to cybersecurity threats?
I think that's way above their pay grade.
That's a good answer.
I would rather see, I love what the president's doing around AI, where he's bringing in specialists from the private sector. So I would tend to go that route. And that's what I do in business. I don't pretend to be the smartest guy in the room, but I try to surround myself with the smartest people in the industry or in the subject matter. So I would tend, and I don't think that's Congress, by the way. So I would rely on the private sector.
Okay, Holly. Not that he takes advice from people in a room, but what advice would you give President Trump, if you could, about the current Iran conflict?
I think we need to finish it. I think that we need to go and do what we started to do. We need to make sure that there is no nuclear Iran. We need to make sure that our people are safe and that there are no proxies terrorizing our soldiers and our people. And we need to make sure that we're safe. So I would say that we need to finish this and that our agreement, whatever the memorandum of understanding happens to be when it's done, make sure that it covers those issues.
So we have time probably to do a 30-second answer, one more round, and then we'll go into the closing statements. So, I don't know, yeah, I'm doing my best here. All right. So, what's a skill you have that would surprise voters? Yeah.
I would say the ability to work with others. Running 40 different businesses in different states, you have to rely on other people. And it's a skill set that was developed over many years, but I would not be as successful as I am today without people I surrounded myself with. I feel blessed to have exceptional employees, and I believe that skill set is greatly needed in Congress. I talk to a lot of people as I travel this state, and I'm surprised, but I'm glad that many people are just fed up with it.
Okay, 30 seconds. So, this is the lightning round, sorry.
Yeah, anyway, I'm happy that people are fed up with dysfunction in Washington, and so I would say that skill set is the ability to work with others to achieve results.
All right. Melissa, in 30 seconds or less, what was your first job and what did it teach you?
My first job was fast food. It was Dunkin' Donuts, which is appropriate here in New Hampshire. I had a family friend that owned a franchise. It taught me about getting up early. As a teenager, you don't like to do that, and it taught me the importance of drinking lots and lots of caffeine, a habit that I picked up very early, and I still drink gallons of it.
All right. Brian, in 30 seconds or less, if you weren't running for Congress, what would your dream job be?
Astronaut.
Space Force. And Holly, what's the most New Hampshire thing you've done in the last month?
In the last month, I have traveled all over District 1, meeting people face-to-face, shaking hands. I think that is the New Hampshire way in politics. Face-to-face, hand-to-hand, sitting down over a cup of coffee. That's what I've done.
Awesome. 2-minute closing sessions. And I propose the ladies first. And since you just went, Holly, we'll let Melissa go, and then you can go, and then the two guys can arm wrestle and figure out who they go.
All right, well, I said it at the beginning, and I want to end with it as well. The importance of winning this seat comes down to sending someone across from Stephanie Shaheen. She is running as a concerned mom who wants to fix healthcare, and we need to send another mom across the stage from her, a real mom who really knows about these issues. She is doing this healthcare tour, and she started at the basically an abortion provider and said she wanted to ensure those services were available for her daughter's generation, and that was just crazy to me. We cannot be sending people to Washington like that. So I recently took my daughter who graduated, we went to her college orientation, and the theme was make good choices. They told the students, the choices you make today will determine your future. And so you and I today in this room, we have an important choice to make when it comes to this primary and who we send against Stephanie to win this seat in November. So I want you really to think about us as candidates and the differences. And I am a mom, first and foremost. I also have audit experience, which is what we need in Washington right now. I'm a person of strong faith. I feel deeply called into this race for Congress. Ephesians 4:1 says, lead a life worthy of your calling, for you have been called by God. I really want to honor Charlie Kirk by protecting faith, family, and freedom. More than anything, freedom is our greatest gift. And I will fight tooth and nail for our financial freedom, medical freedom, education freedom, freedom to practice our faith, freedom from the heavy hand of government. Thank you.
Okay. So my grandmother came to this country in 1913 to escape the pogroms. And we sat around the dinner table and she always told me, you love this country. This country's been good to us. And my dad during World War II joined Merrill's Marauders. He taught me to fight for this country. So between my family, I learned to love this country and to fight for this country. And I will always fight for the American worker and for the Granite Staters, because I believe in them, and they are our greatest asset. And I will always fight to make America great again, because I believe in the promise of America. And as we know, and as we've heard, Stephanie Shaheen or Maura Sullivan will be standing across from us on the aisle. Stephanie will run on health insurance, Maura will run on being a veteran. I am the only one who has done both. I have worked as a nurse practitioner, and I have negotiated health insurance across for all my employees, over 100, personally negotiated. So I can fight on both levels as health insurance and as a veteran. So I ask you for your vote, I ask for your consideration, and if you don't like me, still talk about me, gets my name out there. Thank you.
I've been working for 53 years. I never intended to be a politician. I've always supported candidates. I love our state and I love our country. I'm looking at this opportunity right now, and I do not want to spend another cycle, another 2 years saying, why can't we elect a Republican? We can elect a Republican to Congress, and we need to put good candidates forward, and we need to support them. I'm very concerned about the direction our state and our country could be heading if the liberals get control. Stephanie is being endorsed, and she thinks this is good, by the way, is being endorsed by Gavin Newsom, yeah, Pritzker from Illinois, Abrams, she's got Hillary and Kamala coming in. I mean, that is not New Hampshire. And again, if we do not fight for New Hampshire, we're going to lose it. I've been fighting for 35 years in the private sector. I bring a lot of experience that is greatly needed in Washington. Whether it's fiscal experience, whether it's housing construction, whether it was small business, I bring a lot of experience. And I'm running because I believe that New Hampshire will greatly benefit from that, and our country will benefit from that. And like I said earlier, people try to put labels on me. If you want to put a label on me, call me a pragmatist. I'm just bringing common sense to DC, which is obviously greatly needed. Thank you.
Well, this is fun. Everyone having a good time tonight? Yeah. All right. Well, I've worked hard up in Concord for the last 4 years, and I plan on working hard for you as your congressman down in Washington. I know that people in New Hampshire are going to come first on my mind. That's where my heart is. I look forward to a fun race. You know, the last 2 congressmen came out of Manchester. It was Ginta and it was Pappas. Then it's going to be Brian Cole. There we go. If you'd like to help out in the campaign, volunteer in the campaign, or support the campaign, go to colefornh.com. That'd be awesome. And God bless New Hampshire, and God bless the greatest country on earth, the United States of America.
I gotta say, that was really awesome. You know, it is a huge personal sacrifice to run for office. As any one of these folks can tell you, they're on the road like every day. It just consumes their life. And, you know, we want good candidates. We've got 4 great candidates up here. We're sorry you can't all win, but we really want one of you to. So I would like to have a round of applause for the candidates. So what we're going to do now is take just about a 10-minute break, and then the Senate candidates are going to go on right at 7. And in the meantime, you want to refresh your drinks, or maybe you want to go out on the lawn and get a photograph with some of these fine people. I think they might be available. me? Is that okay? Do people hear it? Okay, all right. So, who's ready to rumble? This is gonna be good. Okay, so the format of this is a little bit different. So before, in the previous one, the questions rotated and there was not an opportunity to respond. For this format, I'm going to ask the candidate a question. They get 2 minutes to respond. That's because our timer can only do 2-minute increments. Oh, you can do anything. So if they end up going long, I might cut it to 90 seconds as we go along just to try to get through more questions. And then the other candidate gets 45 minutes to respond to that.
He's not getting paid.
All right. So,
Are you nervous?
no. What's a little technical difficulties on national TV? What's the problem? All right. So, to determine who goes first, I've got this handy-dandy coin. It has 2 faces on it. I'm going to toss it up in the air. Whoever's face is up gets to decide whether they want the first opening statement or the first question. Okay, what would you like?
I'll open it up.
You'll open it up. Okay. So before you do that, the only thing I want to say is, so normally the questions are going to alternate, but there was, all these questions came from the various, you don't want to keep that? The questions came from the various sponsors, and there was one question that I just got over and over and over. So we're going to do, the only difference is the first question you're both going to get, and then the last question you're both going to get. Okay, so opening statement.
Good evening. Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you, our hosts. Thank you for all of you coming out on a beautiful June evening when you could be doing other things. Look, we have a lot of important races on the ballot this year, not just U.S. Senate. We just heard from some great House candidates. And the fact is, if we're going to succeed as Republicans this year, if we're going to succeed, we need to make sure we're not attacking and tearing down other Republicans. We need to make sure we keep our focus on the Democrats, our focus on winning in November. That's what my campaigns have always been about, and that's obviously what I want to focus on tonight. Look, it's been 10 years since we've had a Republican representing us in Washington. That's wrong. We're a Republican state, Republican governor, House, Senate. Yet we have 4 Democrats representing us in Washington, and I will tell you, Chris Pappas is the worst. Chris Pappas is a legislative zero. In 8 years in the House, he has accomplished very, very little. He's done nothing, he's left no mark. But when he raises his hand, he votes lock, stock with the liberal leadership every time. When Nancy Pelosi was Speaker, Chris Pappas voted with her 222 out of a possible 223 times. How is that possible, you ask? I don't know, but I do know this. It's not New Hampshire. He voted for the biggest tax increase in American history. He voted for open borders. A few weeks ago, Chris Pappas voted for a national car tax. Anybody in here for national car tax? Anybody in New Hampshire for a national car tax? I am running for U.S. Senate to send Chris Pappas back to bussing tables at his family's chicken restaurant. A strong, effective voice for New Hampshire values in Washington, to cut taxes, to balance the budget,
Okay,
to keep the border secure.
When our timekeepers stand up.
And as senator, I'll have one job: stand up for New Hampshire every single day.
Well, first of all, thank you very much to the coalition, to everyone for coming out. And Alan, thanks for you for doing this as well. I want to just recognize my wife. Spouses in these type of things, they put up with a lot. We'll be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary on July 12th. Listen, we all know why we're here and what's at stake. You saw it happen in New York. You see it in Maine. You see the no open border sanctuary cities, men and boys and women and girls sports, defund the police, but no military. We see what's happening, and Chris Pappas is basically the leader of that. One of the reasons I got into the race is to make sure Gene Shaheen didn't run, but more importantly that Chris Pappas is not our senator for 30 or 40 years, because he will lead that charge. What I want to do is I want to make sure I will never support any unfunded mandates. All right, so what's happening is going from the feds to the state to the towns to us. That will never happen. I'm going to make sure we work on to improve our energy production and our energy ability to basically heat our homes in the middle of the winter, because this delegation voted against all those opportunities. I will guarantee you that we will never have wind turbines in our beautiful ocean seacoast. There's so many things at stake right now. And it really comes down to experience, and experience does matter. I served almost 40 years in the military, joined after the blizzard of '78. As an enlisted man, my last tour at the Pentagon, working for one of the Joint Chiefs. Experience matters militarily. John and Chris said they wouldn't move forward with what the president's doing. I disagree respectfully. I've been to Afghanistan, Pakistan, Israel, Dubai, Jordan, Kazakhstan, Kuwait. As an ambassador, as a senator, worked in those regions, understand that region, and what the president is doing is correct. And Holly was right, he needs to finish the job, but I'm also glad that he gave an olive branch to them to basically either sink or swim. Very, very important. Also a diplomat. Served under President Trump's first term, ambassador to New Zealand and Samoa, Cook Niue. Very important to have those diplomatic skills. More importantly, I'm a grandfather, and I know that what's happening to our young families and people who are struggling to do and get their jobs and pay the bills, and I want to be able to work towards that. Thank you.
Does this work? All right, it is working. All right. So one of the things I meant to mention is, obviously these two gentlemen are very accomplished. There's a lot of titles that I could call them. I made the decision to call them by their first names just because here we're all just citizens, right? So Chris, you won the coin toss.
I'm pretty smart, and I'm much funnier than
Okay.
him.
All right. So, we did ask all the various coalitions to submit questions. This one I got overwhelmingly, so I'm going to ask both of you. You get the first answer. Since we're not going to rebut, since it's the same, have the same question, we'll take it to a minute. So the question for both of you is, both of you have publicly criticized President Trump at various points. How would you work effectively with President Trump while still maintaining your independence as the U.S. Senator?
Well, that's
But I went first.
Oh, yeah.
One of us could do your job and the debate.
It's really not.
He's nervous. Everyone give it up for Ellen, by the way. Well, first of all, I think that's the main difference here. Yes, we both criticize the president, and I truly am the only independent person in this race, because you look at Chris Pappas, his resume of getting, NARAL, Emily's List, all these special interest groups, money from California, everyone else, that's him. And you look at John, respectfully, a nice man, but he's also embedded with the Senate Leadership Fund, the NRSC, AFP, a whole host of other groups. The only one who's truly independent and can call balls and strikes is me. That's why I didn't get the endorsement. Let me tell you why that's important, because independents represent 39% of our voting population here, and they're coming out in droves recognizing that I'm that guy that calls balls and strikes. And what do I mean by that? When the president goes and renegotiates a contract in Canada, I think that's appropriate. It's always good to renegotiate a deal. But when he says that they're going to make him the 51st state, not going to connect a bridge to our two countries and humiliate them, I think he's gone too far. And I would say that. I'm not sure if John or Chris definitely will say whatever he wants because he hates the president. He'll never support him in any situation at all. That's the difference.
My campaign is about one thing. It's about the people of New Hampshire. I've certainly been endorsed by people from all over the country because they know this is the best opportunity to win a Republican seat pick up a Republican seat in the Senate this year. But the endorsements that matter to me are Senate President Sharon Carson, 10 state senators, all 4 of our Republican executive counselors here in New Hampshire. Yes, the chairman of the Trump campaign here in New Hampshire and his organization, all of our former Republican governors. Those kinds of grassroots endorsements in New Hampshire are what really means something to me. And it makes it clear to me that as senator, as I said, I'll have one job, stand up for New Hampshire every single day. That's all I have to worry about. I'm not worried about re-election. I'm not worried about currying favor with any leadership in Washington. I don't have to worry about any of those things. I just worry about doing the right thing for the state of New Hampshire. Now, it's important that we have someone who can work effectively with this administration on veterans issues, Social Security issues, economic issues. And believe me, when I walk into the Oval Office, when I pick up the phone and make a call to the Secretary of Commerce, they're going to answer.
John, this question is from the Republican Committee of Northampton. What is your position on birthright citizenship for children born into parents who are in the United States illegally? And we're switching to the long format. You get 2 minutes, and then Scott will get a 45 seconds.
Thank you. Look, this is obviously a decision that's before the courts. They're going to interpret the 14th Amendment and whether or not it really justifies and allows birthright citizenship. But there's no question immigration has changed since that amendment was written. When that amendment was written, there were no immigration laws that made a distinction between legal and illegal immigration. And I think that's the one thing that's changed that may justify the court saying, no, birthright citizenship should not be allowed, and Congress should be the ones that decide who becomes a citizen and under what circumstances. And I think one of the reasons that this is so compelling is that, yes, in this modern age, when people can just jump on an airplane and get to the U.S. in a matter of hours, we have an industry of people coming from other countries in order to give birth, in order to allow their children to be citizens. That is not what was envisioned by the 14th Amendment. No matter what the Supreme Court decides, that is wrong. That shouldn't be allowed. And if the Supreme Court doesn't make the right decision, then Congress should certainly act to restrict and prohibit that kind of behavior. It's right for America, and it's certainly the right thing for the people of New Hampshire.
You know, it's really a no-brainer. You have these baby factories that are in Texas and other parts near the border, and they're just coming over and they're having a baby. Oh, I'm a citizen. I know they're entitled to all the rights and privileges that everyone else gets, that people who have been here have earned it. And respect for what Joe Biden did. What Joe Biden did, letting all these people in here illegally, number one, we don't know who they are, we don't know where they are, and what President Trump's doing to try to get them out is completely appropriate. John's right, the Supreme Court will make that decision. I went back and I looked at some of the legislative history, and it was never intended for this type of thing, to bring people here, have a baby, get a citizenship, and get all the rights and privileges of U.S. citizens. So I'm hopeful that they make the right decision. If they do not, I will lead the charge as a U.S. Senator to make sure that we do not allow that.
Okay, the next question is for Scott. And before we do that, can I just remind people to turn their phones off, please? It's very distracting having the ringers and things go off. So take a moment, look at your phone here. For the moderator choking out shots. Scott, this is a question from the Rockingham County Republican Committee Executive Board. What steps would you take to build support for the SAVE Act in the United States Senate?
Well, first of all, what the leadership in the Senate is doing is abhorrent. They're not adhering to what the president thinks is appropriate, what I think is appropriate, and I'm sure what John thinks is appropriate, and everyone here. Who agrees that we should pass the SAVE Act? Raise your hand. I mean, it's a no-brainer, and that's what the problem is. There was a question asked about Congress. You know, what would you do to make them more effective? Well, when they don't do their jobs, they shouldn't get paid. When they don't pass a budget and they don't fund the agencies and they go away on vacation for months and months and months, they shouldn't get paid. Let's start with that. That's one of the first bills that I'm going to support. I've already been very public, not only on Newsmax, Fox, everywhere else, talking about the fact that John Thune, who I went to his daughter's wedding, okay? I like him a lot, but respectfully, he's got to do his job. He's got to keep them there 24/7, 365 until they do their jobs. They can't go and raise money for fundraisers. They can't leave Thursday and come back Monday. And they should be doing a talking filibuster. Yeah, they should talk till they drop. And then maybe they will get something done. And because that's so important. They're not doing their damn jobs. Respectfully, that's one of the reasons I'm running. The first thing I did when I became a senator, remember, I'm the guy that stopped the Democrat supermajority when Kennedy died. The first thing I did when we had 40 and 41 senators is I did the insider trading bill within a few months. We did it. And you know what? When I left, they weakened it. So there has to be accountability. And I'm not going to be on the inside, but I'm going to be somebody who's going to hold them accountable. And I will make sure that I will stay there and do my job. And I will continue to push the SAVE Act and every other effort to get our citizens knowing when they walk into an election and they walk into the booth that the people next to them are citizens and they are authorized to vote.
SAVE Act. Scott's certainly right. Make them stay, make them vote, make them do their job. But second, make them vote straight up or down on the provision that that you have to show voter ID in order, or a photo ID in order to vote. It's very simple. We have it in New Hampshire. Chris Pappas is against it. Now, they attached all kinds of other things to this legislation. Make them have a straight up or down vote, and if Democrats vote no, you hold them accountable. Second, you attach it to every critical piece of legislation that comes down the pipe. A defense appropriation bill, attach it. Defense authorization, national security funding. Heck, you put it on an ag bill, you put it on a farm bill, that's going to pass the SAVE Act. Don't stop until you get it done.
So the next question is for John. It comes from the Republican Committee of Northampton. China is rapidly expanding its Navy. Should the United States increase its naval capabilities, and what investments in the Navy would support?
Sure. One, absolutely. We should be expanding and increasing our naval operations, not just in response to China, but because the security threats around the world are constantly changing. We saw that with some of our efforts to help Ukraine. We certainly saw that in the fighting in and around Iran and in the Gulf. We need to make sure we maintain naval superiority. What does that mean? One, aircraft carriers, right? Aircraft carriers remain an incredibly important base of support. Drone technology, naval drone technology. We actually use drones to rescue downed airmen. Critical, new technology. And frankly, a lot of this emerging and new technology, it's not coming from inside the Pentagon. It's coming from innovators, entrepreneurs, companies supported by venture capital. It makes all the difference. We need a new procurement strategy in the Pentagon that focuses on these new naval technologies, drone technologies, smart missile technologies. It's essential. And I'm afraid we're not equipped. We're not equipped because the Pentagon is too bureaucratic. They're out of touch with technology. We need new leadership, new people in many of these areas in order to take on the threat that is China. And China's not going away. They continue to expand in the South China Sea. They continue to build new islands, build new military bases, and they really represent the single most significant national security threat that the United States faces today. Thank you.
Well, I'm not calling for new leadership because we have Secretary of War Pete already. We have the president already. And they've done these amazing efforts, these amazing efforts that I thought I was reading like a Tom Clancy novel. I mean, it's unbelievable what they've accomplished. And Chris Pappas and our entire delegation said nothing. Listen, I was the first guy in the Indo-Pacific as the ambassador, pushing back against China every single day. They're building and militarizing islands, changing the law of the air and sea that have been in place for centuries. They're over-leveraging Pacific Island nations. When they can't pay, they take an airfield or a port that we built in World War II. They're not playing by the rules. So of course we need to increase our military. They're doing everything and they're not following the rules. They want to be a superpower, but they don't have a 3 to 6 to 9 year plan. They have a 30, 60, 500 plan. And I want to make sure that I can be there to continue to push back against China.
We had this nice yellow-green light thing and it failed.
Leave it to the Secret Service.
Dual role here. Okay, this question is for Scott, and it comes from the Republican Committee of Hampton Falls. What is your plan to ensure that America has sufficient energy infrastructure to support future economic growth in the demands of data centers and artificial intelligence?
Well, first of all, data centers and AI, data centers are two separate topics. Obviously, we need to decide whether we want them here or not. So it's up to us to determine that, not the federal government, not the state government to tell us that we're putting data centers in your backyard. So that's the first thing. On AI, I'm glad the president has brought in experts. I thought what Anthony said about getting people smarter than you in there to determine what's up, because China's doing it. If we lose that war, a lot of what we saw in the conflict with Iran, they're actually using AI. We used AI to get a lot of these things done, so there are some benefits for sure. We need to make sure that we do it correctly. Now, I'm wrestling with and learning and listening. Should we have it, federal government be that mothership and then the state governments, feed it? Or should we have individual 50 or more states doing those sorts of things? I'm not sure. But energy, listen, our entire delegation has voted against delivering energy forever. The Green New Deal, more taxes, more spending, more regulations, thwarting that New Hampshire advantage. And we need to make sure it's, listen, by the way, if I lose, John, I'm going to support you 100%, okay? Because we need to have a senator instead of Chris Pappas, because energy is so important. Who paid the bills? Look at the bills over the winter. They stopped the pipeline, but I took a trip to Seabrook Nuclear Power Plant, and I saw what they're doing. 1.4 million homes in New Hampshire and Massachusetts. There's an ability to expand. The governor's looking at it. That's an option. But I tell you, we're not going to have those wind farms in our beautiful seacoast. It's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. Of course it's good to have a lot of, do the recycling and do all the things that we do. But if we don't find the ability to push back against the overregulation that's happening not only with our federal delegation by changing ships, but work with the Secretary of Energy. I know the Secretary very well. We both can call up. I had them all at our backyard barbecues. You know them. I mean, we had RFK, we had 2,000 people. So let's go. Let's have some fun. I saw you that time because Jody stood up.
The question, I've got 30 seconds. Energy costs, energy investment, right? What do we do? How do we make it better? First, production. I mean, it sounds so simplistic, but the Democrats have voted against new production domestically time after time after time. Today, the United States is the biggest producer of oil and gas in the world. We need to protect that energy dominance. Second, permitting reform. It is too hard to build critical infrastructure in America. Electric transmission, gas pipelines. We need more gas brought into central New Hampshire from the mid-Atlantic states through Massachusetts. Massachusetts is stopping it dead in its tracks. Permitting reform will make that go forward. And lastly, look, stop the insanity of mandating that providers buy at above market rates and stick taxpayers and ratepayers with the cost. No more. That's the key to bringing down energy costs.
I will say from the stage, it's a lot easier to see when both of you stand up. Like, you just can't miss it. Okay. So this question is for John, and it comes from the Republican Committee of Kensington. The one big beautiful bill added trillions to the national debt. would you have voted for it? Why or why not?
One, I would have voted for it. Two, it didn't add trillions to the national
That was
debt.
the question.
This is liberal Democrat accounting right here, coming from stage left. What the Democrats said is, well, the tax cuts from 5 years ago were due to expire. So that means taxes would have skyrocketed on every American. And because we voted to keep taxes where they were, that was a tax cut, right? Only in liberal America. In fact, voting against that bill was voting for the biggest tax increase in American history, and believe me, Chris Pappas did it. He also voted for $100 billion in new energy taxes. Look, that bill did some important things. It kept taxes low. It cut taxes on overtime. It cut taxes on Social Security recipients. It cut taxes on tips. So important to New Hampshire's small business and travel and tourism economy. It also started to scale back the fraud. It went after fraud in Medicaid. It said, look, you've got to work. If you're able-bodied, getting Medicaid, you ought to work. And get this, if you're an illegal immigrant, you shouldn't get Medicaid. The important pieces that take this country in the right direction, and with taxes low, our economy is going to continue to grow. And that's so important to New Hampshire's small business economy, that we not saddle them with new taxes, new regulations. The last thing I'll say is we need to do more, right? We need to continue to fight the fraud. You've all read about it. Billions of dollars in prosecutions this year. Medicare fraud. We need to go after that in the next bill. We need to make sure we scale back the regulations that our providers here in New Hampshire deal with under Medicare and Medicaid. Give people in New Hampshire more power, more control. We know what to do with the funding.
No tax on tips, no tax on overtime. Obviously, the $500 million for our rural health centers. I could go on and on and on of why Chris Pappas voted against it, but we all know why, because he's, completely out of touch with the people of New Hampshire. I mean, you look at some of the stuff that's in there, and John referenced it. Getting our seniors getting a $5,500 credit on their Social Security. I mean, imagine walking into his restaurant and saying, "Oh, by the way, I voted against no tax on tips, no tax on overtime, and by the way, your mom, she's going to have to continue to pay all that." I would have voted for it, yes. And Chris Pappas said he wasn't supporting it because of SNAP. Well, my mom was on welfare. I understand what those are like, those big blocks of cheese, etc. Did he go to the Secretary of Agriculture? Did he go to the Speaker? And did he go to the President to fix it? The answer is no, and he never will. I did that when I passed the insider trading bill.
Okay, this question comes from the Republican Committee of Rye. Scott, why are you the strongest candidate to face Chris Pappas as a general?
Well, I talked about it earlier, and I didn't get to finish. One of the most important things is I'm a grandfather. No, really, how many people are grandparents here? Yeah, and how many people recognize, and respectfully, the other two people I'm running aren't? I'm sure they will be someday. But why is that important? It's important because, I could be wrong, but it's important because I know what our young people are going through. My daughter's going through those things right now. Everybody's fighting to pay their bills, high insurance rates, the ability to basically pay for food. All these things are affecting young people right now. I believe I have that experience that deals with those things more readily than maybe the others. The military experience I already talked about. Being that guy who's been to those places. I've been to Taiwan 3 times. I've been to China. I know exactly what they're doing. I know why they're doing it, and they want to have world dominance. That's all it is. And if we don't push back and we don't have somebody who's a fighter, who's going to go and call them out like I did for almost 4 years, then we're going to have some problems. And when you also look at the diplomatic, being a diplomat for almost 4 years, the ability to deal with the Christchurch massacre and other tragedies, the ability to do trade deals, the ability to understand the world nature of who we are and what we're trying to fight for. The fact that we have people coming in from the country from other countries right now, soccer fans, saying that we live in the greatest country in the world. They're singing our songs. They're singing our praises. And we have, listen, let me just step back. John and I are so much more qualified than Chris Pappas. So much more. And respectfully, every other member of the delegation. But I think my military experience and the diplomatic experience is very, very important, especially this day and age, because there's no learning curve. I don't need to go to the Secretary of War and say, hey, Pete, what's going on? I know what's going on. I know how to deal with it. I know how to make better suggestions. And I think that's critically important.
Different than a lot of people who have served in Congress, and I think that's a good thing. I grew up in Salem, New Hampshire, went to Salem High School, educated as an engineer. Okay, problem solving is what my life has been about. Working in manufacturing in Manchester, dealing with hiring employees, investing in the company, growing jobs, dealing with all the federal regulations that are out there. And that's so important to have someone in Washington that understands our economy, our workers, our small business community. So I've always brought that with me to Washington. Maybe more important though, I have a track record of standing up for things important in New Hampshire, not just standing up, getting it done. Writing and passing legislation important to New Hampshire. I wrote and passed the ban on internet taxes that helped our small business, wrote and passed legislation to protect the White Mountain National Forest, wrote and passed legislation protecting the Lamprey River watershed. I've gotten it done. Republican administrations, Democrat administrations, I know how to do it.
We get a quick round of applause for our timekeeper. Okay, this question is for John from the Kensington Committee. That is, what strengths and skills do you bring to the table that convinces voters that you are the best person?
Well, I hate to criticize the questions, but it sounds a little bit like the last question. So, look, strengths and skills, I'll start where I left off, and I'll leave you a little time, too. I'll give back a little time. But being able to be effective means knowing how to get things done. It's not enough just to say, I'm going to take a stand or I'm going to fight. Okay? As I said, I wrote and passed legislation banning internet taxes. That was a Republican bill, my bill. We passed it with a Democratic-controlled Senate. Because how do we do that? How do you do that? I'll tell you flat out. We were smarter. We outmaneuvered them. We forced them into a box they didn't want to be in, and they caved. Okay? Second, legislation to pass the White Mountain National Forest, critical legislation. We got it done. We got it done the right way. On the Patriot Act, standing up for civil liberties. Right? The Patriot Act gave huge powers to the government. National security letters, subpoenas, wiretapping. And I said, we need to do more to protect civil liberties. We actually fought against the president's bill, the Republican bill, because it didn't do enough to protect. We won. And the fact of the matter is, despite all the criticism we received at the time, we were right. These powers were abused by Democrat presidents and Republican presidents alike. So the skill of knowing, not just how to take a stand, how to take a vote, how do you find a way to get it done for the state you care about? How do you get it done for New Hampshire? And that's all I'm focused on, getting it done for New Hampshire every single time.
And that's the whole point, getting it done for New Hampshire. But when you are so beholden to all the other interests that are supporting these campaigns, just follow the money, folks. The beauty of being me right now, and it's something that happened when I stopped the Democrat supermajority when Kennedy died, is I am truly the only independent person in this race. I only answer to the people of New Hampshire. And what does that mean exactly? It means when you pick up the phone and call me, you're not saying, how's the grandchildren, how's your band? Hey, when are you coaching, or when are you going to triathlon? You're saying, Scott, I need help. I need help right now, and I don't need it tomorrow, and I will be there to call you back, or someone from my staff. We will not send you a form letter like our delegation does. Oh yeah, we'll get back to you. It's not even on the subject matter that you cared about. So I'm going to be there like I've always been, that problem-solving fighter, scrapper, to make sure that you have the best representation that you haven't had in a long, long time. Thank you.
Question comes from Portsmouth, which is where I'm from. And I did want to ask it for both of you, just because this is another one that came up. But Your turn is up, Scott, so I'm going to pick on you. So many Republicans have bitterly disappointed the base by turning into rhinos once they get into office. What can you say to the audience here to assure us that you won't become a rhino?
Well, first of all, I consider myself a Scott Brown Republican. I read the bills. How about that? I read the bills. I read Obamacare, when they rammed it through reconciliation. I'm the guy that said I was going to stop it, and I couldn't because the first time in modern history they rammed it through reconciliation. I read it. You couldn't keep your doctor. It wasn't affordable. We see that now, but they rammed it through, and our delegation here is supporting it all over the place. And it's wrong. So I read the bills. I see how they affect our state, our country, and debt and deficit, and I vote. Period. That's the cocoon that I have to ensure that I'm going to do the things that are best for our state. And if there's something that the president wants, respectfully, that affects New Hampshire in a negative manner, I'm the guy that can actually say, no, sir, because I didn't get his endorsement. Yet I support 95% of what he does, but respectfully, he's not right all the time. He needs people to tell him, sir, maybe look at this a little different. Maybe look at this a little differently. Because you need to know that when you go there, yeah, there's a tremendous amount of pressure, especially if you've taken all that money, and especially if you've gotten all those endorsements. You owe them. Trust me, I remember what it was like when people were coming down and trying to buy me off, and I said no. So look at the two candidates and say, who really is the truly independent guy that owes nobody anything except you? And that's me.
People of the state of New Hampshire is my absolute commitment to stand up and work for them every single day. We've received lots of support from all over the country, but the fact is nobody's contribution makes any difference. And for someone to stand up and say, well, yes, it does, that makes me question where they're coming from, because it doesn't make a difference to me. But to go around accusing others of having that influence is just wrong. It's just wrong, and it's not New Hampshire. Here's what I'm going to do to make sure that, or to assure you, that I'll remain a conservative. Just look at my past. Look at what I've done on tax reform. Look what I've done on writing bills to cut taxes. Look at what I've done to fight unfunded mandates. Look at what I did and the votes I took to put power and money back here in the pockets of people in New Hampshire. That's what consistency and conservatism is about, and that's what I've always been about.
Here comes a fun question for you, John. It comes from the Republican Committee of Northampton. What is your position on participation in women's sports based on biological sex? And will you support federal legislation addressing it?
Look, this is about women's safety. This is about women's safety. Boys shouldn't be competing in girls' sports. Women, to protect girls in sports, and we have every right to do it, right? I mean, that's supposedly what Title IX was all about, and we're not living up to that promise. When it comes to women's safety, here's the question I have for Chris Pappas. Why is he supporting Plattner in Maine? It's offensive to women, degrading to women, abusive to women, and he doesn't have the temerity to stand up and take an honest stand that the socialists with the Nazi tattoo and the history of denigrating and tearing down women isn't fit to be in the Senate. No boys in girls' sports. Protect women, protect their safety. Let's do the right thing at both the national level, but here in New Hampshire as well.
Listen, I love Governor Ayotte, but she vetoed for the third time that particular issue. I mean, come on, not allowing men and girls in women's bathrooms. That's Chris Pappas. It's not a Republican thing. So you want to talk about conservatism, I would absolutely lead that charge. My daughter played basketball at Boston College, committed at 15 years old. The thought of her actually going up against a man to take her scholarship is what's happening around the world. Shame on the parents who are promoting, oh, my daughter, she just won the state championship. No, she didn't. She stole it from a young lady who's been training her whole life. and crushing those dreams. And it's just not right. It's a 90-10 issue. Both of us will fight, but I'll be working, that's my number, top 3-4 issues, is to push the United States Senate to codify the stuff that President Trump has done, because the next president, God forbid we lose, is going to reverse it again, then we're right back to where we are.
I knew that would be a live one. All right. Makes no sense. Scott, this next question is for you. It comes from Northampton. What do you see as the risks of China's Belt and Road Initiative, and how should the United States respond?
Yeah, I'm the only person who knows and understands that, because I dealt with it for 4 years. I saw firsthand that they would go into a place like Samoa, which I was the ambassador. They would build a new rugby stadium, or they would build a new airport, or a new hospital, or a new courthouse. They wouldn't use appropriate architectural plans. They would bring in their own labor, their own food, complete biosecurity problems all over the place, and then they would leave some people there, just to help out, at the end. Why that? They're there to influence, obviously, their government.
Right.
So, doing what they've been doing, continuously over-leveraging. Oh, it's a gift. They come in, they take the pictures, they do everything, and then they leave. But guess what? They show up about 4 or 5 years later when the thing is falling down. They say, oh, by the way, sir, China, we need you to fix it. No, you've got to pay us first. Well, it was a loan. No, it wasn't a loan. You owe us the money. And when they can't pay, they take our ports. It happened in Niue. It happened in Cook Island. They wanted to take our airfield that we built in World War II. So it's real. I've done it. I pushed back against China. They're a #1 geopolitical threat. Iran is #2. Okay, North Korea is probably 3, 4, or 5. Russia is right up there #3. I understand those issues. I want to work. I want to get on, obviously, the Foreign Affairs Committee, take Gene's place, be a better representative. So we can provide the tools and resources for our men and women who are serving, not only when they serve, but when they come home, being on the Veterans Committee again, fighting to protect our veterans, to make sure they have the tools and resources to get mentally and physically ready to work. And that's what I'm going to do. That's what I've done my whole life. I've lived it. I breathe it. I feel so passionate. I miss every day the men and women I've served with. For almost 40 years. I see they're dying now, many of them. I see that they're expanding their families. They're doing things that they finally enjoy. But those deep scars are there, and I want to be there to help.
China's the biggest national security threat we face. It's good news, I suppose, that so many of their Belt and Road initiatives are crumbling around the world. The countries where they've brought in resources, the countries that have let borrow money, they're seeing that this initiative is just a shell. Well, that's a step in the right direction, but we still need to confront China everywhere we can around the world. That means providing and continuing to provide our support, military support for Taiwan, continuing to work to diversify our supply chain so we're not dependent on products coming from China, making sure that we have good tariff policies in place to penalize China for unfair trade practices, dumping, undercutting price, and destroying American industries around the globe. Look, that's what it's about. You have to fight them at every corner of the economy, every corner of the globe.
Okay, John, this next question comes from the Republican Committee of RIE. Obviously, everybody in here is a Republican, but quite a few people in the Grand State are independent. And what is your plan to win over the independents?
Sure. Look, I said from day one that the real focus of my campaign would be on jobs, the economy, and affordability. And that's because whether you're talking Republicans or independent, this is what they're focused on. Right? Especially those that aren't necessarily activists that are coming out to events like this every night. How do we make life more affordable? How do we make sure we have job growth and economic growth, especially for younger people, younger workers in New Hampshire? They look at AI and they question whether they're going to have a future. And we need to make sure that they know, one, America is the greatest country in the world, and two, we're going to continue to survive and grow and prosper here in New Hampshire. How do you make things more affordable? Housing affordability. Let's get rid of the tariffs on building materials. Let's get rid of the regulations that the federal government puts on us for building multifamily housing. Energy affordability, we talked about new production, permitting reform, investment in critical infrastructure. In healthcare affordability we haven't talked about tonight. One, how about real competition? Allow providers to sell policies, insurance policies across state lines. How about getting rid of the regulations? Go to any doctor or nurse, ask them how much time they spend on regulations. It's not 10% of their time, it's 20, 25%. That's cost we all pay. Health savings accounts. Give everyone in America that wants a health savings account the opportunity. Healthcare affordability, housing affordability, energy affordability, supporting New Hampshire's small business. Look, jobs in the economy has to be the focus to make sure those independent voters know you're focused on the right thing, the things that will make a difference for New Hampshire workers, New Hampshire families, New Hampshire seniors, and veterans, and employees. Thank you.
To get the independence, you have to be independent. I mean, you have to have that independent streak, which I've always been. I've always been that Scott Brown Republican. Reading the bills, seeing how they affect our state, country, debt, and deficit, being that problem solver, giving you my word that I'll be there when you need me. Fighting, obviously, for everybody. Yes, the independence of 39%. And what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing is, hey, Scott, I know you didn't get President Trump's endorsement. Why? I said, because I'm independent and I call balls and strikes, and I think there's times when he needs to know that I don't agree with him. For example, I love what he's doing with Iran. John and Chris said that he shouldn't have gone forward. He just said it on Close-Up the other day. Shouldn't have gone forward at all. So to have a nuclear weapon, Iran with a nuclear weapon is going to be problematic. So there's many things we can do. I call balls and strikes. Independents want somebody who's independent. Amen.
Have a strict timeline here to end right at 8 o'clock. So we're going to go into the last round. You're each going to get the same question. It's not 2 minutes. You can take up to a minute. But we want to leave on a positive note. So, John, what positive thing could you say about Scott Brown?
Let me have it.
I think he's taller than me. In all seriousness, a couple of things. One, I have great respect for his military service. He served in the Guard for years. That's so important. There are men and women all across New Hampshire, all across the country that have shown that commitment, and it has made an enormous difference for military readiness, and I have great respect for that. Second, admire. I'm a little jealous. He does have grandchildren. Three adult kids. They're terrific. No pressure, Johnny. No pressure, Grace. No pressure, Charlotte. But we don't have any grandchildren. And I admire and just a little jealous. Thank you all very much.
That's great. Well, I'll tell you what, John. We had our 4 grandchildren to the house the other day, and it was like a demolition derby, so I'm happy to lend them to you. So Gail and I can go and have a night out.
My own grandchildren.
Well, I'll make sure they call you Papa too. It's okay. First of all, I love your dad. I think your dad's an amazing man. He's given everybody here incredible guidance. And the thing I love about the Sununu family is their service to our country, and your service as well. And like I said, John, if I lose, I hope I don't, I'll absolutely support you, because the thought of having Chris Pappas there for 30 years. Thank you. I appreciate you supporting me as well. So, that was a great answer. Thanks for standing.
Okay, so we each get 2 minutes to close the statement. So whoever won the coin toss, the other person got to say. So I guess, yeah, that would be it.
Well, Ellen, thank you for your meeting. Your great job.
Whoa, here all week.
Well, first of all, thanks, obviously, to our timers. more importantly, this is amazing. I love this stuff. I love people here that aren't supporting me being here. I love the fact that John is here. Because we're both in Rye. I rode my bike by his house at 6 o'clock this morning. He was still sleeping. No, he was not. I'm kidding. It's a joke. It's a joke. But seriously, we have two guys from Rye who want to be a U.S. Senator. I mean, how amazing is that we have two qualified people compared to the delegation that's putting in roadblock after roadblock. Listen, the difference I think between me and the others is when I give you my word, it's gold. 15 years ago, I visited a soldier at Walter Reed, and he was actually lost an arm and a leg. He was doing sit-ups and push-ups, and he was getting ready to go back in. He wasn't going in. And when I left, I said, if you ever need me, I'll be there. Well, guess what? His mom last year tracked down my daughter's mother-in-law and said, I need Scott Brown. He was getting screwed at a law school in Massachusetts. They weren't giving him his ADA, American Disabilities Act benefits. They weren't taking care of him. The Silver Star, Purple Heart recipient, treating him like shit, okay? And over, and he had a 1.99, he was gonna get expelled. I got involved. I used my diplomatic skills, and I worked very hard for 3 weeks to finally get him readmitted. No avail. Finally, I said, listen, I'm going to call a press conference. I'm going to make sure that we get every news station here. And by the way, I went to Boston College Law School. We're going to get an attorney down here. They think it's worth about $15 million. Well, don't you know, we got him reinstated. I was honored to write his letter of recommendation to the bar. And I was honored that he finished the top of his class, and he's now an assistant district attorney. So the difference in why you should vote for me is because when I give you my word, it's gold. I will call you back. I will make sure that I solve that problem. If I can't, I'm going to find an expert to do it. If you want to help, go to scottbrown.com. This is fun. I like this. This is fun. So let's go have some fun for the remaining 2 months and a week. Thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you for everything.
June evening to listen to politicians for 2 hours. I salute you. I salute you. Ladies and gentlemen, America is the greatest country in the history of the world.
Absolutely.
And New Hampshire is the greatest state in the history of America. New Hampshire has the lowest state and local taxes of any state in the country. We also have the lowest crime rate. We have the lowest poverty rate. These things are not accidental, right? They are because of Republicans fighting against sales taxes, fighting against income taxes, supporting balanced budgets, giving power to local governments, right? That's why New Hampshire is the greatest place to live and work and raise a family. And these are the values, these New Hampshire values that I'm going to take with me to Washington every single day. Fight to keep taxes low. Fight for New Hampshire small businesses. Fight for secure borders. Fight for energy dominance for the United States. And fight for affordability for our families, housing, energy, and health care. That's exactly what I'm going to do as a United States Senator. I want to close by asking for your vote. With your support, I'm going to win. We're going to win in November. And I will be a Republican senator and the next United States Senator from New Hampshire.
Yes.
I promise you two things. One, I will provide you and all the New Hampshire citizens the best constituent service of any member of any delegation anywhere in the country. I did it before, I'm committed to it, I'll do it again. And second, I'll have one job. No, I'm not going to listen to any leadership in Washington. I don't need to run for re-election. I'm not worried about another job. I will be a senator who will stand up for New Hampshire every single day and on every single vote. Thank you very much.